The silent arrival. The morning sky over Detroit looked normal enough, but Dr. Sarah Chen knew something was terribly wrong. Her radio telescope had been picking up signals for 3 weeks now, patterns too complex and organized to be natural phenomena. The frequency signatures were unlike anything in their databases, operating on wavelengths that shouldn't exist according to conventional physics. Sarah stared at her computer screen in the cramped observatory office, coffee growing cold in her hands. The signals had started subtle, almost background noise that most equipment would filter out automatically. But Sarah had modified her receivers years ago, pushing them beyond standard parameters in her search for extraterrestrial intelligence. She never expected to actually find it. The data scrolled past in endless columns of numbers, but the pattern was unmistakable. Coordinated, intelligent, and getting stronger every day. Whatever was sending these signals was getting closer to Earth, moving with purpose and precision that made her blood run cold. Meanwhile, across the city in a cluttered auto repair shop, Jake Morrison was having his own encounter with the impossible. The 34-year-old mechanic had always been good with his hands, able to fix anything with wheels or wings. But the twisted metal fragment that had crashed through his shop's roof 3 days ago defied every law of engineering he knew. The material was impossibly light yet stronger than titanium, with a surface that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury when he wasn't looking directly at it. Internal components hummed with energy, even though he couldn't identify any power source. Jake had run every test he could think of, but the fragment remained a mystery wrapped in advanced technology that shouldn't exist on Earth. As Jake bent over his workbench, carefully probing the alien artifact with makeshift instruments, he didn't notice the faint blue glow beginning to emanate from its core. The fragment was responding to his touch, awakening systems that had been dormant since its violent separation from the mother craft. High above Earth's atmosphere, Commander Zethkar observed the planet's surface through the advanced sensors of his cloaked harvesting vessel. The Zephyrian military leader stood 7 feet tall, his gray skin marked with intricate bioluminescent patterns that indicated his rank and achievements. His large black eyes showed no emotion as he studied the primitive world below. The harvest protocol had been implemented on dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy. The process was always the same. Arrive undetected, study the local species for weaknesses, then systematically collect specimens for processing. Some races fought back, of course, but none had ever posed a real threat to Zephyrian superiority. This world would be no different. Initial scans complete, Commander, reported his science officer, Bextall. The dominant species shows typical mammalian development patterns. Technology level approximately 3 centuries behind our own. Military capabilities primitive and fragmented. Estimated resistance duration, 48 to 72 hours. Zethkar nodded, his expression remaining cold and calculating. Begin Phase 1 collection. Target isolated populations first. We need to understand their biological processes before moving to urban centers. He paused, studying the data streams flowing across his command display. These humans appear physically weak but show unusual neural activity patterns. Ensure our specimen containers are properly shielded. The first abductions began that night. Across the globe, people simply vanished. A farmer in rural Kansas disappeared from his tractor while working late in the fields. A night fisherman in Norway never returned to shore, his boat found drifting empty at dawn. In the Amazon rainforest, an entire research team vanished from their camp, leaving only scattered equipment and signs of struggle. But the Zephyrians made their first mistake in Detroit, where Jake Morrison was still working on the alien fragment. As the invisible harvesting beam descended through his shop's roof, it encountered the awakened artifact. The fragment's defensive systems activated automatically, creating an energy feedback loop that overloaded the abduction equipment. The Zephyrian collection pod materialized briefly, its cloaking systems failing as sparks erupted from damaged circuits. Jake dove behind his workbench as the alien craft spun wildly, systems screaming warnings in an unknown language. Through the chaos, he caught glimpses of the vessel's occupants, tall, gray figures with technology far beyond human capability. The pod's emergency systems kicked in, whisking it away in a burst of displaced air. But it left something behind. A trail of energy residue that Jake's modified detection equipment could track. More importantly, it left behind proof that humanity was no longer alone in the universe. Jake stared at the readings on his jury-rigged scanner, his hands shaking as the implications sank in. The fragment in his shop wasn't just alien technology. It was a piece of an invasion force, and somehow it had just saved his life. Dr. Sarah Chen received Jake's frantic phone call at 3:17 a.m. The mechanic's story sounded insane, but the data he transmitted matched her own observations perfectly. The radio signals were coming from ships, vessels capable of moving between star systems and sophisticated enough to remain invisible to Earth's detection networks. Within hours, Sarah and Jake were working together, combining her theoretical knowledge with his practical expertise. They analyzed the alien fragment, mapping its energy signatures, and slowly beginning to understand its purpose. It wasn't just technology. It was a key, a device designed to interface with larger alien systems. As dawn broke over Detroit, similar scenes were playing out across the globe. A computer programmer in Tokyo had intercepted alien data transmissions and was frantically trying to decode their meaning. A former military engineer in Sao Paulo, Maria Santos, had witnessed an abduction attempt and fought off the alien collectors using improvised electromagnetic pulse devices. In London, a group of university students had discovered alien monitoring equipment disguised as ordinary street furniture. Humanity's first response to invasion wasn't panic or surrender. It was curiosity, ingenuity, and the stubborn refusal to go quietly into the unknown. Small groups began forming, connected by encrypted communications and shared determination. They called themselves different names in different languages, but their purpose was universal: understand the enemy, adapt their technology, and fight back. Commander Zethkar watched the initial collection reports with growing concern. The harvesting teams were reporting unusual difficulties, equipment failures, unexpected resistance, and most disturbing of all, evidence that the humans were studying captured alien technology. This had never happened before in the history of the Harvest Protocol. Commander, Vextel approached with obvious reluctance. We're receiving reports from Collection Team 7. Their harvesting pod experienced catastrophic systems failure over the North American continent. Preliminary analysis suggests the humans somehow interfered with our technology. Zethkar's bioluminescent patterns flickered with irritation. Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. They lack the knowledge to even detect our presence, much less interfere with our operations. But even as he spoke, new reports were flooding in. Collection teams across the planet were encountering problems. Some faced direct resistance from humans wielding weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate Saphirian shields. Others reported their cloaking systems failing at critical moments, as if the humans had learned to track them. In his Detroit workshop, Jake Morrison made another breakthrough. By connecting the alien fragment to his shop's power grid and computer systems, he had managed to activate what appeared to be a communication protocol. Symbols and data streams flowed across his monitors, slowly resolving into patterns he could begin to understand. The fragment wasn't just a key. It was a translator designed to facilitate communication between different alien species during harvesting operations. Through it, Jake could monitor Saphirian communications, tracking their ship movements and learning about their plans. More importantly, he could use it to coordinate with other humans who had encountered alien technology. Dr. Sarah Chen used her observatory's equipment to broadcast coded messages to resistance cells worldwide, creating a network of information sharing that grew stronger by the hour. Maria Santos in Brazil contributed her military engineering expertise, teaching others how to weaponize everyday electronics against alien systems. The Tokyo programmer, who called himself Ghost, hacked into satellite networks to track alien vessel movements and predict their attack patterns. As the first week of contact drew to a close, something unprecedented was happening. Instead of the usual pattern of helpless victims being systematically harvested, the Zephyrians found themselves facing an increasingly organized and technologically sophisticated resistance. Humans were adapting alien technology at a rate that defied all previous models, turning the invaders' own weapons against them. Commander Zethkar stood before the tactical display in his ship's command center, studying the global situation with growing unease. Red indicators marked failed collection attempts, blue showed successful human counterattacks, and yellow represented areas where his forces had been forced to retreat entirely. The pattern was clear and deeply disturbing. "Sir," Vextol reported, his voice tight with concern, "we're receiving distress signals from multiple collection teams. The humans they're hunting us, using our own technology against us in ways our combat simulations never predicted." Zethkar's eyes narrowed as he absorbed this information. In all his years of service, through dozens of successful harvests, he had never encountered a species that learned this quickly. The humans were proving to be far more dangerous than their primitive appearance suggested. Perhaps it was time to abandon the subtle approach and unleash the full might of the Zephyrian war fleet. But first, he needed to understand how these seemingly primitive creatures had managed to reverse engineer technology that had taken his people millennia to develop. The answer would determine whether Earth would be harvested or sterilized. The unexpected harvest. 3 weeks after first contact, the war for Earth had taken an unexpected turn. Commander Zethkar found himself in the unprecedented position of being the hunted rather than the hunter. His harvesting fleet, designed to efficiently collect specimens from primitive worlds, was being systematically dismantled by a species that should have been defenseless against Zephyrian technology. In underground bunkers, abandoned subway tunnels, and makeshift laboratories around the globe, humanity had transformed from prey to predator. Jake Morrison's Detroit workshop had become the nerve center of a growing resistance network, its walls lined with salvaged alien equipment and jury-rigged human technology that shouldn't have been able to function together, yet somehow did. Ghost confirms 3 more collection pods disabled over Southeast Asia. Jake announced to the assembled team of engineers, scientists, and former military personnel who had gathered in his shop. "Our electromagnetic pulse modifications are working better than expected. The alien systems are completely vulnerable to the frequency disruptions we've been broadcasting." Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her analysis of the latest alien communication intercepts. "It's more than just their technology being vulnerable," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and concern. "I'm picking up signs of genuine panic in their command structure. They're reporting equipment failures, personnel casualties, and what they're calling psychological warfare effects from human resistance activities." Maria Santos, who had flown in from Brazil with intelligence gathered from South American resistance cells, spread a series of photographs across Jake's workbench. The images showed alien vessels in various states of damage, some crashed, others showing signs of hasty repair attempts. "It's not just the technology," Maria explained, her engineering background evident in her precise analysis. "We're fighting them in ways they never expected. Their training, their tactics, their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming technological superiority against primitive opponents. They have no experience dealing with an enemy that adapts as quickly as we do." The truth was even more remarkable than the resistance leaders realized. Across the globe, humans were not just adapting alien technology, but improving upon it. In Mumbai, a team of software engineers had managed to hack into the Zephyrian navigation systems, causing collection pods to materialize inside solid rock or thousands of feet above their intended targets. In Stockholm, a group of physics students had discovered how to overload alien power cores, turning harvesting vessels into spectacular fireworks displays. But perhaps the most effective human tactic was psychological warfare through sheer unpredictability. Zephyrian military doctrine was based on logical, systematic approaches to conquest. They had never encountered an opponent that responded to invasion by spray-painting graffiti on invisible ships, broadcasting Earth music at frequencies that interfered with alien communication systems, or organizing flash mobs in locations where collection attempts were expected. Commander Zethkar reviewed the latest reports with growing alarm. In the past week alone, his forces had lost 17 collection pods, 12 reconnaissance drones, and a heavy assault craft to human resistance activities. More disturbing were the reports of Zephyrian personnel experiencing what the medical officers termed cognitive dissonance syndrome after exposure to human cultural transmissions. Commander, Vextel approached with obvious reluctance. We have another report from the medical bay. 3 more collection specialists are requesting reassignment after exposure to human entertainment broadcasts. They claim the illogical nature of human humor is causing them severe mental distress. Zethkar's bioluminescent patterns flickered with confusion and anger. Humor. These creatures are facing extinction, and they respond with humor. That appears to be correct, sir. Our psychological analysis teams report that humans exhibit decreased stress responses when engaging in activities they classify as jokes, pranks, or memes. This behavior strengthens their resistance to our intimidation protocols and appears to spread to other individuals through unknown mechanisms. The commander studied the tactical display, watching as yet another collection attempt failed spectacularly. The humans had somehow managed to redirect the harvesting beam, causing the collection pod to accidentally abduct a herd of cattle instead of human specimens. Worse yet, the confused bovines had somehow activated the pod's distress beacon, leading to the vessel's destruction by human fighter aircraft that shouldn't have been able to detect cloaked Zephyrian technology. In Tokyo, the programmer known as Ghost had achieved something that Zephyrian scientists would have deemed impossible. He had successfully infiltrated their central command network. Using a combination of alien technology reverse-engineered from crashed pods and programming techniques that prioritize chaos over efficiency, he had gained access to the invasion fleet's operational protocols. This is incredible, Ghost transmitted to resistance cells worldwide. Their entire species thinks the same way. Same logical patterns, same decision trees, same responses to every situation. They literally cannot adapt to random or irrational behavior. Jake Morrison received this intelligence with a grin that would have terrified any Zephyrian observer. Then let's give them more chaos than they can handle. Sarah, can you coordinate with the other observatory sites? I want every radio telescope on Earth broadcasting the most random, contradictory signals we can generate. Dr. Chen nodded enthusiastically. I can do better than that. I'll have them broadcast Earth's entire internet history simultaneously. Every meme, every joke, every piece of human creativity we've ever produced. If they can't handle our humor, let's see how they cope with our entire cultural output. The plan, which would later be known as Operation Noise Storm, went into effect at precisely midnight GMT. Every functional radio telescope, satellite dish, and communication array on Earth began broadcasting the full spectrum of human achievement. Shakespeare and comic books, classical music and death metal, scientific papers and cat videos, religious texts and atheist arguments, all transmitted simultaneously on frequencies that Zephyrian communication systems couldn't filter out. The effect on the invasion fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Zephyrian personnel, accustomed to logical, ordered information exchange, found their neural pathways overwhelmed by the sheer chaotic diversity of human thought. Collection specialists abandoned their posts, claiming they could no longer distinguish between mission parameters and human cultural references. Navigation officers reported difficulty maintaining course corrections because they kept getting distracted by Earth music. Even the ship's artificial intelligence systems began exhibiting erratic behavior, occasionally responding to commands with human jokes instead of technical acknowledgments. Commander Zethkar stood in his command center, watching his perfectly ordered invasion dissolve into chaos. His bioluminescent patterns were flickering erratically, a sign of severe stress that hadn't appeared in his species for generations. Around him, His officers struggled to maintain their composure as waves of human cultural transmission washed over their communication networks. "Sir," Vextol reported, his usually precise speech slurred with confusion, "the humans have somehow weaponized their entire civilization against us. Our personnel are reporting symptoms we don't have names for. They claim to be experiencing entertainment, inspiration, and something called the giggles. Our medical staff has no treatment protocols for these conditions." The final straw came when Maria Santos, leading a coordinated strike team, successfully boarded a Zephyrian command vessel using nothing more than construction equipment, welding torches, and an unshakable belief that any technology could be hot-wired if you knew where to look. Within hours, she had not only disabled the ship's weapon systems, but had somehow reprogrammed them to play Earth music every time they tried to fire. Maria Santos grinned as she joined them, still covered in alien grease from her boarding action. "Good. Let them come. We'll be ready." The retreat of the Zephyrian fleet marked the end of humanity's first interstellar war, but it was also the beginning of something far more significant. Earth had proven that technological superiority meant nothing when faced with adaptive intelligence, creative problem-solving, and the stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. In the weeks that followed, as humanity began to study and integrate the abandoned alien technology, a new understanding emerged. The universe was vast and filled with intelligent species, but most of them thought in predictable patterns. They followed logical protocols, adhered to established procedures, and expected their enemies to do the same. Humans were different. Humans were chaos agents in a universe that valued order, creative forces in a galaxy that preferred the status quo. And as word of Earth's successful defense spread through interstellar communication networks, other species began to take notice. Some would see humanity as a threat to be eliminated. Others would view them as potential allies in conflicts against more traditional enemies. But all would remember the lesson of the Harvest Protocol. Never underestimate a species that responds to invasion with humor, fights with improvised weapons, and refuses to follow the established rules of warfare. Commander Zethkar filed his final report on the Earth operation from the safety of deep space, his ship already months away from the Sol system. The document would become required reading at Zephyrian military academies, a cautionary tale about the dangers of assuming technological superiority guaranteed victory. Species designation: human, he wrote. Threat level: extreme. Recommended action: avoid all contact. Notes: unpredictable behavior patterns, rapid technological adaptation, weaponization of cultural concepts. This species does not conform to established models of civilization development. They appear to thrive on chaos and view serious situations as opportunities for creative problem-solving. Military intervention is not recommended under any circumstances. As Earth's sun set on the day the invasion ended, Jake Morrison stood outside his workshop, looking up at stars that no longer seemed quite so distant. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were learning that humanity had joined the galactic community not as victims or supplicants, but as a force to be reckoned with. The Harvest Protocol had failed, but in doing so, it had given humanity something far more valuable than the aliens had intended to take: the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and the confidence that whatever challenges lay ahead, human ingenuity and determination would be enough to face them. Earth's first interstellar war was over, but humanity's journey to the stars had only just begun.